Hi everybody, thanks so much for joining us today. If you're here and you're watching this presentation, my guess is it's because you're a senior at South Salem High School and you're interested in knowing a little more about what this year will entail for you, things to expect, and as you look into life after high school, after you leave South Salem High School, you want to know the information that's pertinent to you, whether you're headed to a four-year university or you're headed to a trade school, or even if you just want to live in your parents' basement for the rest of your life. All that information will be provided in the coming slides. So sit back, enjoy this time, and thanks so much for joining us. As of October 1st, 2018, there are currently 250 days left for seniors until they walk at graduation. It's our job as counselors to make sure you have all the information you need in order to be prepared for that June 7th night as you join all of us on Bennett Field. A lot of this information will be pertinent to getting you to that point, things that and dates you need to look forward to, that you need to have marked in your calendar, as well as a to-do list. We try to make it as simple as possible. To be honest, we could be here for the entire semester walking you through this process. Unfortunately, we only have today, and so this presentation is aimed to get you jump-started, to let you know the things you need to know in each step along the way, and also so that you have a sense of urgency that as big as 250 days are for you, it's 250 days and they go by really fast. To make it as simple as possible, we've broken it down to 4 simple steps, 1 through 4, your senior checklist. Now, each step does include some information, and we'll get into each of them in detail, but really it comes down to 4 things. You got to decide what your plan is. What are you going to do after you graduate from South Salem High School? What are your intentions? It could be anything. Like I said, it could be living at home in your parents' basement. It could be heading to a 4-year university with the intention of going on to a master's program or a doctorate program somewhere. But step 1 is just deciding what your plan is, and that could just be brainstorming. Step 2, determine what you need to do to get there. What does it look like? What are the steps that you can take right now and throughout this year into the summer to get there, to make sure that your plan, you follow through and you're able to follow through with your plan? Step 3, determine how you're going to pay for it. And the reality is that a lot of these programs, if not all, are going to have some sort of associated cost. And so we're going to talk today a little bit about what those costs are. We'll compare and contrast between different programs, different schools, so that you have a better understanding of what kind of costs you can expect depending on what your interests are, and also how to pay for it, what sort of resources are available for you. And then step 4 is just to do it. Get it done, get started on it, and get going on it. So step 1, decide what your plan is. For us, we've adopted a simple plan, easy as ABCD. It's something that we've taken from Oregon Goes to College initiative from Oregon Gear Up, and we believe that all Saxons can go to college, redefining what college actually means. In society, we so often think that college means 4 years, but today we're going to redefine that. College is not a 4-year program. It could be an internship. It could be an apprenticeship. It could be a 2-year program at a place like Chemeketa or Portland Community College. For us, it's as easy as ABCD, and let me explain what that means. A stands for associate's degree, and this is synonymous with your 2-year degree. We call it either a 2-year degree or an associate's degree. You can pay for this through financial aid or things like the Oregon Promise, where you've got aid guaranteed to you with the 2.5 or higher. Programs that are offered through an associate's degree include nursing, criminal justice, fire protection, dental hygiene. There are a lot of 2-year programs that transfer into a 4-year program, and so for any of you who are really thinking, I can't afford a state school like a University of Oregon or a Portland State, or even a private college like Linfield or Willamette, you might want to look at an associate's degree and going through the 2-year route so that you can transfer on to a 4-year program. So that's A. B would be a bachelor's degree, or for those of us that know it better as a 4-year degree, this is a 4-year program where you're going to need at least a 3.0 or higher to get into a 4-year program here in the state of Oregon. SAT and ACT is highly encouraged, though not always expected. Financial aid applies here as well. This is a school like Oregon State or Linfield, George Fox, Corbin, Western Oregon. There's going to be liberal arts colleges. There's also going to be a science program, pre-med, engineering as well. C stands for career and vocation, and it's for any of our students who have decided that going into traditional school after spending how many years? 13 years here at South Salem, and middle school and elementary through kindergarten. Additional schooling may not be your cup of tea. And so we wanted to provide the opportunities, the things that you need to know for anyone who decides that additional schooling, traditional schooling, is not for you. So when we talk about career and vocation, we're referring to things like apprenticeships, as well as internships, on-the-job training, getting started right away in a company, a business right outside of high school. You can also use financial aid to pay for this. Trade school would be one like hair and design. And there's no GPA requirements for these programs. There are some requirements, but GPA is not one of them. So for those of you who have less than a 2.5, if you're not considering traditional 2-year school like a Chemeketa where there is no GPA requirement, you may consider going into an apprenticeship or an internship. Finally, our last letter is D. That stands for Department of Defense. This would be your traditional military route. So for anyone interested in joining the Army or the Navy, the Air Force, National Guard, the Marines, or even the Coast Guard, this might be the route you want to take. Maybe you've already been meeting with some recruiters here at school, or maybe you have no idea where to even start. If you're interested in this area in going into the Department of Defense in one of these fashions, like I said, Army, Navy, Marines, please let us know, contact us, and we can walk you through how to get started there. With the Department of Defense, anytime you're going into the military, you're going to take a test called the ASVAB, which is the ASVAB, is how you spell that. And this is similar to the SAT or ACT, but it's used to help determine your placement, your jobs, where you start in each military unit. So that would be D, Department of Defense. Private schools tend to have the opportunity or the ability to afford more financial aid. And so that's money that you do not have to pay back. Even though that cost you'll see says $40,000 in just tuition, they may be able to give you $25,000 in scholarship money, whereas a place like University of Oregon may not be able to give you as much money. And so for me, for instance, when I was choosing between the University of Oregon and Whitworth, a private university up in Spokane, Washington, I determined that Whitworth was actually less expensive. Oregon would cost me more, even though it was in-state tuition. I qualified for that. It would still cost me more than attending a private university like Whitworth. So just things to note. You can read through these slides. We have copies of them available on our website. And so if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to us. So this is the opportunity where we pause and plan. And we want to know whether you identify more with the A, B, C, or D path. And it's possible that you absolutely could identify with one or more of the paths. So if that's the case, go ahead and take note of that. In class, we provided a piece of paper for students to fill out their answer here. I'll let you, as you listen, go ahead and make a mental note or write it down on the side. Then obviously we want to know also why you choose A, B, C, or D. So step one was determining your plan, what your idea was, brainstorm a little bit about what you wanted to do. Step two is determine what's needed to get there, what you have to do in the coming months, the coming weeks, even this entire year to achieve your plan and your desired goal. In order to know where you're headed, it's important to know where you've been. And so we've taken this time to hand out transcripts so that you can check your total overall credits. You can check your non-weighted GPA to see whether you qualify for a four-year university with a 3.0 or higher. You can check the total number of core classes, which are English, science, math, and world language, as well as social sciences or social studies. And then also check those grades in the core classes. As you know, if you want to be a four-year university student, you'll need a C or better in those classes. And if you want to just go to a two-year university, that doesn't matter quite as much. One of the myths I want to point out here that we often hear, questions we often get in our office, is whether or not you need a world language or 2 years of a world language in order to qualify to go to a place like Chemeketa or Portland Community College. The answer is no, you don't. You also don't have, there's not a GPA requirement, but you do not need a world language. You also don't need the Algebra 2 or higher in order to get into a community college or a 2-year program, get to obtain your associate's degree. You don't even need that in order to transfer to a 4-year university after you've started at a 2-year. The great news is that they'll accept you as long as you have your high school diploma. So here's a brief example of a transcript. One thing I just want to point out real quickly is you'll notice there in the first semester of their sophomore year, there's a geometry class where you'll see a grade in G or no grade, and that's because this student retook geometry later in their high school career. You'll notice that this particular student is not quite eligible for four-year university consideration. However, they are on track for graduation, and they'd be a great candidate for a two-year program as well. You'll see the essential skills that need to be passed in reading, writing, and math, as well as this personalized learning plan. And I can assure you, by the very nature of you being in this class right now, or listening to this presentation, you are getting a lot of that crucial information that you need regarding the personalized learning plan. One of the great ways after you know where you've been or you've done your transcript review to identify where to go next is to partner with our Aspire program. For those of you who don't know, our Aspire program is located above our library, and that's in room 234 or 234. It's your resource for everything college and career related. They're experts in finding funds for your future plans. So we're talking about the FAFSA, the ORSA, scholarships, financial aid of any type, whether you have to pay it back or not, grants, and the Oregon Promise. They also have great assistance for resumes, college essays, and interviews. And you can sign up in the Aspire Center to be paired with a mentor that will work with you one-on-one throughout the year. I often say that counselors have a giant view. They have the 30,000-foot view as they look down on a student. It's our job to know everything about a student, everything that you're going to face as a student, not just college and career related, where the Aspire Center is singular focused into the college and career scope of your life. You can contact them using the website listed there at the bottom of the screen. Next step would be to research. A lot of the things and a lot of the answers that I get from universities just come from a simple Google search. I'll type in Chemeketa admission requirements if I have a question. So let that be your future's best friend and allow it to help identify the admissions requirements and the processes, whether it's a internship or apprenticeship or you're going to the four-year route. Don't be afraid to call, pick up your phone, and call, set up a mentor with Aspire, as I mentioned, visit universities, college visits at South, they come here all the time, community colleges, as I mentioned earlier, recruiters for the Department of Defense come in, go to job sites, go through a vocational program, college fairs. These are all great opportunities. You know, we have Willamette, we have Western, we have Chemeketa, we have Corbin, all in our area. And it wouldn't take too much to just walk over to Willamette, walk around, see if that's the campus that you want to be on. I was just meeting with a student the other day who said that Willamette was not an option because they've spent their entire life on Willamette's campus for various reasons, and it just doesn't feel like home for them anymore, even though they've been there so much. So they are looking to get out of the state of Oregon. It will be also important during this time this year to volunteer or do an internship. Find someone that can take you under their wing, mentor you in a field that you're interested in. Here's another opportunity to pause and plan. We've already identified which path you want to go on. Now, I'd like you to write down your first 3 action steps as you head down that specific ABCD path. So take some time, think about it. Okay, now that you've determined your next 3 action steps, step 3 is to determine how you'll pay for it. How are you going to afford the school of your dreams? How are you going to afford to live in your parents' basement the rest of your life? All of these things need to be considered, and it's important for you to figure that out. As we think about how to pay for school, there are 2 main options. The first would be, which was not my case, but if you have a grandparent or parent, an aunt and uncle, or maybe you've won the lottery, that you can just pay for the school or the program of your dreams with straight cash. Again, that wasn't me, but for some of you, that's a possibility. For the rest of us, one of the best options out there is the FAFSA, and that stands for the Free Application for Student Aid. And that program is totally free for you to sign up and apply for financial aid, which would be more loan related, and also grants and scholarships. We'll get into that in just a second. But these are the 2 options for you as we think about how to pay for school. When I mentioned FAFSA or ORSA, which is the Oregon application for financial aid, there's 2 subcategories here, 2 different ways that you can pay. One would be through loans, which is predominantly what I did in order to afford to go to college. And that's taking out loans each year. And so you apply through the FAFSA.gov website. There's more information on that coming up October 15th from 6:30 to 8. Today, actually, October 1st, as we're giving these presentations, this is when everything opens up, and it's important that you apply using the FSA ID. Go to FAFSA.gov. All the information will be there. There's also grants that are available through FAFSA and also through your specific program. Grants are a lot like scholarships. That's money you don't have to pay back like a loan. So for any of you that are applying to go to college and don't know how you're going to pay for it and aren't confident that you're going to have a lot of scholarship money, or you're not going to win the lottery this year, or you don't have a parent or grandparent willing to fork out several $1,000s, my recommendation is to fill out your FAFSA right away. So let's pause and plan again. How do you plan to pay for your path? We've gotten through 3 steps now. Step 4 is just to do it. Get it done. Get started on it and do it. We've talked about steps 1 through 3 so far, determining what your plan is, determining what's needed to get there, and then determining how you're going to pay for it. My advice here on what to do is get through those steps 1 through 3. Do it. Get them done. Next thing you want to do is to clean up your online presence. You can follow us on Instagram at South Saxon Counseling. And I really want to emphasize this one. My wife is a recruiter where she spends time going through the candidates for jobs, their online presence. They have a company that they contract with that looks into people's backgrounds. A couple words of wisdom here, words of caution. They can figure out pretty quickly things that you think are secretive or behind the scenes. Companies that you use, social media that you use, as much as they say that it's private or that it's secured, oftentimes that can be found quite easily. Those things are what you post, what you tweet, what you snap, everything that you put out there into the internet is findable. And if a company is willing to pay enough money, they're able to see what you've posted. So be very careful. Go back, scrub your Instagram, scrub your Twitter, scrub your Snapchat. Make sure everything on there is professional and up to board, things that your grandmother would approve of. Next thing I want you to do is consult with your counselor. If you haven't met us yet, come meet us. We have 4 great counselors down in our counseling center, and though we're working at the speed of light to try to solve and serve every student's needs, I want you to know that we really want to get to know you and find out more about your story and help you determine what you want to do after South. Next, I want you to set up an Aspire mentor. Make an appointment with them, every single one of you, whether you want to go to a 4-year university or you want to live at home with your parents. Next, you can request a letter of recommendation if you need it. Do that now, and I'll walk you through the process on how to do that. But make sure that you are requesting a letter of rec if your college of choice is requiring it or your job of choice is requiring it. In order to do that, you're going to go to the southsaxons.com main webpage. You'll notice down at the bottom left on your screen, you'll see Counseling Department. You're going to click on that. It'll take you to our website. And there in the middle, after you see the header, you'll see Letter of Rec Request. You're going to click on that. It'll take you to a screen that looks a lot like this. This is your student bio, Letter of Recommendation Request. You'll fill out all the pertinent information. This is a place for you to brag about yourself. We will never judge you for you bragging about yourself, especially in this setting. And click Submit, and that'll come to us. We need about 2 weeks to write your letter of recommendation. Next, I want you to fill out your FAFSA. If that's the way you've determined that you're going to pay for it. Look for ways to boost credits and/or GPA. If you're close, it's not too late. There are those that I know that have a 2.7 GPA going into their senior year that have had the ability to retake a few classes and turn their GPA around and get into the 4-year college that they wanted to go to. Make sure you take your SAT or ACT. Make sure you're applying to universities. We've got deadlines coming up as early as October 15th and November 1st, and then graduate. Guys, I can't tell you how many students I've worked with that are right there at the end of their senior year, looking back and going, I can't believe I procrastinated. I can't believe that I'm at this place where I'm not going to graduate. It's a heartbreaking conversation for us to have, and I don't want to have it with you guys. I want you to be the class that graduates every single one of you. Finally, last pause and plan before we get to your questions. I want you to finish this sentence. I commit to immediate action by blank, and there's a list of things that you can choose below, by the date of blank. Think about that. Make a commitment. For those that are watching online, I hope that you would take some time, reflect on this, make a meeting with your counselor, retake your core classes, fill out your FAFSA, come up with some sort of immediate action plan, and set a date to it. If you have any burning questions, I know this is an online format where there's not a lot of interaction at all, but feel free to contact one of the counselors. You can find our information the same place you found this resource, this PowerPoint presentation. Again, if you have questions, don't hesitate to reach out. Thanks so much. Have a great day.